everybody. This is Liz from Augusta, and today I have someone very special to share with you. Austin has a great story. I'm going to let him tell you his name, and where he's from, and a little bit about his life, his childhood, and then we'll bring it up to today with his experience with Augusta. Welcome.
Hey guys, my name's Austin. Um, Originally from Washington State. I moved around, lived in Berlin, Germany for a couple of years, and then moved back to Washington, and now I'm here in Burleson, Texas. And pretty much got my GED, like nothing really too much. Childhood was, I guess you could say, I want to say a little rough, but rough enough to where I definitely made some choices where if I kept on making those choices, it wouldn't have been good. And then, but now I'm here.
Fantastic. So, a little bit about you coming to Augusta itself. You were an employee of the main shop, the guinea pig shop, I call it, where we tried everything for the franchisees. And you were there when we had no idea we'd be doing what we do today. And so, can you tell me about, I don't know if you remember this, about when we interviewed you for the first time and how all that went down, how you came to be employed with Augusta?
So pretty much how I found you guys at first was I was working at BP out in Blaine, with where my mom currently still works at. Just working security. I was trying to at that time get my GED, but I was just getting tired of sitting in a booth on my butt for 12 hours and not really doing anything. And I was gaining some weight too on top of it. But was on Craigslist, saw you guys, and I was like, well, I gave it a shot. Like, why not? Like, I like being outside, and I'm always down to learn something new. I don't really remember my full interview with you guys, but I do remember on how I got hired, and then a couple weeks. I don't want to say a couple weeks, but maybe within my first month, I got sat down by Mike. Uh, that one right there. I will never forget it. And he sat me down and pretty much told me like, "Hey, I'm not going to tell you what you need to do, but we're going to check back in 2 weeks." And we never checked back in 2 weeks.
That's awesome. So I remember when you were first hired. So Mike did the interviewing then. So I set you up for the interview, and then he came and interviewed you. And then we always call the references because we depend heavily on them.
Hmm.
And when I called them, they said, or when he called them, they named two things that you had done and that they had fired you. And so I called you back, and we wouldn't have hired you because basically you hadn't told us any of that in the interview. And Mike always says, what would they say if I gave them a call?
Right.
And I remember calling you back and telling you what the deal was and that we weren't going to hire you. And I just said, for future reference, you might as well tell that stuff up front because they're going to call your references and find out.
Hmm.
And I was still thinking, no way, like you lied, quote unquote, and I wasn't going to hire you. But you were so respectful and you kept saying, oh, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And we don't really do that in Washington. It's very normal in the South, but you were just so respectful of me on, and that you thanked me for telling you that. And so Mike and I talked, and then I called you back and I said, I would like to give you a chance, and you get one chance. And if you fail, then you're out the door. And so you were again very appreciative of that. Well, you had never had really an example of men in your life that were of high character. So how are you supposed to just perform something that you had never seen, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I will say like the only kind of like male figure I really have had in my life was my grandfather. I did have like other people who showed me like, hey, this is what it is to like be a man and like actually be a good father for their kids.
Mm-hmm.
For example, I have my cousin. His name is Brian Pike, who just pretty much has his head on his shoulders, and pretty much his first thing is always, hey, how can I take care of my family? How can I be there for them? But no, other than really that, it was always me and my mom.
Right. So you were like every young person, you were on your phone throughout the jobs, and the guys were getting annoyed. And every day we wrote our names, the names of who was going to work with who. And we were about to fire you from some of the stuff, and the guys were dreading seeing their names by you on the board, and you were on your phone and all this. So Mike had the dad talk with you and just talked about living for others and just all of that stuff about being selfless and working hard and getting somewhere in life and like the extreme ownership talk. And there was
Hmm.
you and one other person, and he said, just like you said, I'm going to give you 2 weeks to change, and if you don't change, then you're gone. But I'm not going to tell you what to do. Well, when you left, you called me. You're like, how am I supposed to change when I have no clue how to change? And so then I told you to pick somebody or pick some guys on the team that were good role models, and if you had to, just imitate them. And then I told you to read. We figured out like what books you should read. Do you remember what those were?
Yeah, actually, here I'm gonna go pick it up real right now because I always keep it right next to me. It's my
Oh,
it,
Can't Hurt Me. Yes. Yes.
hmm
And because he had gone through so much, and I wanted you to be able to know that people can go through horrible things. I remember asking you when we had to do your onboarding, you had two last names. And I remember asking you, okay, which name do you want to use? Is one your dad's and one your mom's? And you said to me, I don't know my dad's name. He's 6 feet under and I can't ask him. And I was like, oh my word. And so, long story short, you stayed with us for how many years was it?
off the top of my head, I believe it was like 4, if not like 5.
Yeah, it was a long time. So you were with us at the little shop in Blaine,
Hmm.
and then you came to the Bellingham shop with us and went through that whole transition. You were there before P4P. You
Hmm.
were there when we trialed it, and you were there after. What
Yes,
was
ma'am.
that like for you? The difference of those two, and then transitioning into it, and your thoughts and feelings around that.
So like when we first like at first it was just like, hey, we're just paying you hourly, and like obviously sometimes with me how I was just trying to find, okay, how what job can pay me more from what I was being paid already.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but once Mike actually went into more detail about P for P, and like you actually saw the difference when at first when we were hourly, and then you saw the P for P, like what it did to your paycheck, it like actually brought a fire into it brought a fire into me because it's like, hey, if you're actually being efficient on your route, you're gonna have a chance to make more money and earn more money on top of it.
So did it help you to start thinking of every motion you made and not to forget stuff and just to be efficient in everything you did?
Yes, at least because I know at times there were times where I was like, oh well, I forgot something. I gotta turn around, and I was like, oh well, I gotta bite that bullet. But or it was like, hey, make sure you have everything. If you don't, improvise if you need to be. But it was always okay. Hey, make sure gas is full. Do you have string? Do you
Mhm.
need a shovel for a job today, or like do you need a trimmer for a job? I made sure to always never leave shop without anything I didn't need.
Mhm. Did you think in the beginning that it would harm the company culture? And how did you experience that once we started P4P?
I thought it actually how can you say wiggled out the people who weren't really good for the culture.
Okay.
Because you could actually see the other people who were actually for it and actually were like, okay, hey, I actually like this. It's actually effective. It's actually
Mhm.
benefiting both of us at the same time. Not, oh, well, hey, I like to do efficient work, or like I don't want to feel like I'm being rushed on my route. Well, now you're not really making as much money. You're just pretty much making base pay.
Mhm.
Because it like if you actually are able to find ways to be able to be efficient on the route and still do a good job, there's a chance for you to get more money in the end of your day.
I love it. So did you find that really motivating in the morning to look at your route and see how much money you were going to make? You could see the prices, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
no.
so you saw the budgeted hours too?
Hmm. That was one thing I liked about when out at the Bellingham shop, because we were also playing around with service autopilot, because
Mhm.
we gave like at first, I remember we gave like everybody the option to be able to see everyone else's routes
Yep.
on top of it. And I know that kind of got into a headache because people were switching without telling you,
Yes.
or Lee, at that time as well. And then you'd be like, oh well, why are you over here and you're over here type thing. Well, we switched with so and so. Well, hey, we needed that heads up.
So that kind of eliminated that too once you had your own route in P for P, because you weren't just bouncing around everywhere.
Hmm.
You knew how much money you were going to make and you were going for it.
Yep. And then if once you pretty much were able to get done, so say for example, it's like you had like 10 routes on your day and you get that done by like 1 o'clock. Well, hey Liz or hey Lee, I'm finishing up on my last mow. And then that's when you guys would either take some mows from other people or you would throw on, for example, small little trimming job or a little cleanup because we still had time in the day to
Hmm.
go do it. And it's like
Awesome.
boom, you just made $200 out of the 600 you just made today, for example.
Hmm. So you own your own location now. You're a co-owner with someone else. So we've
Yeah.
interviewed before, at least once or twice.
Hmm.
And if I think back to that time, you had told me that your goal was to be a coach of some kind.
Hmm.
And I don't think at that time, I don't know in our interview if we had talked about you being an owner or not, but can you tell us what brought you from number one, the mentality to go from an employee to an owner, and how you thought that would be possible, and how was it possible that you could do this?
I would say just the fact is I've always like grown up just wanting to be able to work for myself and be able to provide for my friends and family and making sure they're actually taken care of. So it's always been a goal, but it was just always like, okay, how am I actually going to get there?
Right.
And then also I would say my business partners I'm with right now are a good example to how I should do things as a
Mm,
man, and being able to take care of things and actually be smart with my money and actually know what, hey, do I actually need this? Like, do I actually need to buy this? Or like, is it worth it? Like, do you actually need it?
so your partner that you started with, was he an employee of Augusta Lawn Care too before you guys became partner to own your own business?
Yes. So he worked, I believe he was able to stay with us for at least the probation period.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's 90 days.
Yeah.
I believe, yeah, it was 90 days, so 3 months. So pretty much he was there with us for 3 months. And then really after that, um, we jumped in and got to franchise training after that.
Can you tell me what the 3F program is?
Oh, off the top of my head.
Do you want me to explain it?
Yeah, not off the top. Yeah, because I don't remember off the top of my head.
Right, because you guys don't fit that perfectly, because the 3F program is when someone has worked for any Augusta location for two
Oh,
solid years.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So pretty much kind of off example, Nick, it was you worked for Mike for at least a year or two, which
Mm-hmm.
I was able to do so.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm under, yeah, that's the only one I kind of remember off the top of my
No,
head.
that's right. That's right. And then if you've worked for an Augusta location for 2 years, you're able to start a franchise without any of the upfront franchise fee costs.
And that was me right there. So,
But
um,
Tyler was only there for 3 months. So because we trusted you and Lee and Mike really vetted you and knew you, then Tyler was able to join with you and become co-owners, even though he had only been with us 3 months.
mhm.
Can you tell us a little bit about him and why we would have thought that he was the caliber of person that could do this with you?
So pretty much I would kind of stay like, he's kind of have the same story as myself, but other than just, um, we all made dumb decisions as a kid. But once he got back living with his mom back up at their old house up in Mount Baker, um, he was going to school and then he joined the Air Force.
Okay.
I would say once he joined the Air Force, like his mentality switched,
Mm,
and I would say he grew up, and like I did too.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then me and him always stayed in contact. And he would always ask questions about like what I was doing for work that day. And we're like, hey, like what are you doing? Oh, hey, I'm out of cleanup. Do you know how much it is? And then he'd be like, hey man, why do you ever think like you and I could do this ourselves?
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, we definitely can because like myself, like up north, I also had some side gigs on myself
Mm-hmm.
on the side where I was helping people maintain just like their front yards, like their beds, for example, just
Mm-hmm.
small little stuff with the equipment I had myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I don't see why we couldn't do it, man. Like we've always talked about wanting to be business owners and take care of our people for by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So for him, it was more the fact is like I also look up to him
Mm-hmm.
because of like how he made his moves. Because when he joined the Air Force, I guess you can say I was still being a dumb kid,
Mm-hmm.
making some choices that I probably shouldn't have, and glad I didn't get in trouble for them.
Yes.
But um, it's more the fact is I look up to him even though like I'm older than him.
Yeah. Well, what I remember is that you started listening to Audible and podcasts, and I can always tell when someone is because everything about them starts to change. Once they're starting to listen to extreme ownership and take ownership of their life, and you know that all day while they're working, they're listening to good stuff, they start to change. And I remember that you had other guys that were friends from your old life, so to speak, and one had just gotten out of prison at that time. And I remember you saying, I have a friend and he would like to work for Augusta and he's getting out of prison soon. Do you think that would be a problem? And I said, well, no, you do the crime, you do your time, like you're supposed to be good to go after that. So I don't have a problem with that. But then I said, how about you though? I said, you've changed so much and you're on this good trajectory. What if your friend comes and works for us? How would that make you feel? Would that actually hinder your progress? And I remember you saying, yes, I think it would, because I would be responsible for them if they didn't work out and all this. And so you wanted me to say something when I contacted them back that they weren't moving forward in the interview process at that time. And I think that was a good decision at that time, don't you?
Yeah, I do think so.
Yeah. So moving on to you and Tyler starting your business.
Mhm.
So the 3F program is what benefited you guys to get in, and then you each put money in to start your marketing and all of that. But you moved. So where did you move and why?
So we were the at first we were wanting. I did all like the information, got like all the numbers for Fort Worth area. But as we were looking, housing in like the Fort Worth area more was a little more expensive, and we really couldn't find like the size of house we wanted for the price. So we were looking a little more, I guess you could say, south,
Mm-hmm.
which was we were able to find Burleson.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a little town that's literally not even like 5 minutes away from Burleson called Crowley. So that's where we're currently at, like, or where our house is at.
Okay.
So we service Crowley, Burleson, and South Fort Worth area, and kind of like the outskirts of Burleson.
Do you have pretty tight routes?
So at the moment, majority of our routes are tight. Other than on Thursdays, we do have to go about 20 minutes to one of our places. But then as we move our way back, like from that start point, our routes are pretty much on our way back home.
I see. So when someone starts a partnership, it's something that Mike doesn't really recommend. And I remember us meeting the two of you, kind of going out for dinner, and it was like marriage counseling, kind of. It was like somebody that goes and meets with their counselor when they're engaged before they get married. And Mike talked through all about a relationship and over time the trajectory of that relationship and how it works and how it would have to work in the business. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
So for both of us, like it's the communication is very key. We definitely make sure. So, say for example, if Tyler's upset about something, or if I'm upset about something, it gets talked about right then and there.
Awesome.
Like it's not no, hey, I'm thinking about it for 3, 4 days, and then they mention something a couple of days after that. No,
Mhm.
it's brought up. We talk about it. And we have to meet in the middle. We meet in the middle, but it's more the fact of us both talking about it, finding solutions, and making sure. Okay, hey, do we agree on it?
Mhm.
Yes, no, maybe so, type type thing. Or
Mhm.
hey, like I don't agree on it. Okay, well, give me a reason why you don't agree on it.
Yeah, when you have a business, you have to both really designate your roles and responsibilities so you don't step on each other's toes and get in
Mhm.
each other's lanes. You guys have a very interesting setup and the way you have it. Can you tell me a little bit about who does what and how that works?
So in the mixture of two, so I personally, so because he's going to school for business right now, their Air Force is paying for all that, so it's like, why not?
Right.
But in the morning, so say for example, if we have a scheduled estimate at like 9 to 10, I'm gonna go do that, and then I'm gonna go start mows or winter surfaces, for example.
Okay.
I'm the main guy who's starting jobs and either finishing them, and then I will also be doing the training for employees,
Okay.
and then Tyler himself will be doing estimates. And
Okay.
then if I need help on anything, he jumps into the other truck that we have, grabs mower or any type of equipment, and then pretty much figures out where I'm at, takes what I don't have done yet, and he
Mhm.
finishes it.
So, do you use a CRM? Like, do you use Service Autopilot?
Yes.
And is that mirrored on your phone? Like, it's the same as your computer?
Hmm.
So Tyler, does he well, first of all, what's his school schedule?
So his school schedule is pretty much Monday through Thursday. Leaves here about 6:30, and then pretty much is at school from 7 to noon.
So he can do estimates after work and he can jump in and do jobs.
Yep.
I love it. So it seems like it works well for the two of you so far.
Hmm.
That's great news. So how many employees do you have now
So we have a part-time employee who's just been kind of on hold right now currently.
for the
um
winter?
yep, for the winter, but at the moment right now, he's informed me he doesn't have his license yet still, and I told him, I was like, hey, like I can't bring you back in
Yes.
until you have that license, because
Yes.
then now you're jumping in this truck with me,
Right.
and then like I've already trained you, but now you're just slowing us down.
Mhm.
I need to be able to have you in that second truck to where then you can be handling mows, I can be handling mows, or whatever it is, where it's, hey,
Mhm.
I'm going and doing a cleanup and you're handling the mows type thing.
Right, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome that you're going to have an employee this upcoming season. So you had him last year, and
Yeah.
then he was supposed to get his license so he can run solo routes this upcoming season.
Hmm. And
So what was your revenue like last year? So it was just the two of you and this person sometimes.
sometimes, yeah, so we hired him on like mid-season, so like kind of where we were slowly starting to die down, and about to kind of go in winter season.
Mhm.
So he was there for a couple, like tops, I think maybe 2 months, if not month
Okay.
and a half. So nothing too much. Revenue, I would need to actually look at our first year. But I will definitely say we definitely made mistakes to where like our
Mhm.
revenue should have been a lot higher than what it was.
Mhm.
But we we definitely learned from those mistakes, and we were able to gear up and get the equipment that we needed for second year to be able to be in multiple places rather than just one
Mhm.
when we first started in our first year.
And I think
Um,
you pivoted a little bit sometime during the year because I remember you really pivoting, changing, put some systems better in place, and then you seem to do better after that. Is that right?
yes, ma'am. Yeah, no. So we were able to like 1 month, we made a decent, like a little over 10K that month,
Mm-hmm.
to where then we were able to buy a second truck,
I see.
um, and then be able to have, we already had the equipment needed for that second truck. It was just us needing to get that second truck to be in two places rather than one, and just relying on one truck. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to be in multiple places when we only have the one truck, to
Right.
be able to get more jobs done and actually add more clientele onto our into our system.
So it looks like, from what you're telling me, you had the field experience for all those years. You did thousands of jobs, like without exaggeration,
Mhm.
mows and projects, and you saw what worked and what didn't. You watched us pivot from, mostly projects to mostly mowing. So you saw
Mhm.
that transition, you saw our mistakes, and then you bring this other person in who has what you weren't given the opportunity to have. So you weren't given the opportunity to go to college and all that, but here you are making good money, and you know the work, and the customers loved you. So you were really great with the customers. And so then Tyler didn't have all the experience you had, but he was able to guide you and show you the numbers and, help you with that part of it. So it seems that your relationship and your partnership is better than most because you both realize your weaknesses and strengths. Would you think that's true?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So like, obviously, I'll be sending estimates out myself too, but
Mm-hmm.
on the more hand side, like they're doing measurements for sod installations and having the roller out there, making sure, okay, hey, this backyard's 600 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing the math all behind that.
I
Not
love it.
saying like I can't do it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
more the fact is like I would get a headache from it,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. It caused you
they're
too much stress.
yeah, and they know that. So they're a
Mm-hmm.
lot it comes in, he's a lot easier at it. It's like boom, boom, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hey, um, well, I got that all figured out. And then me, I'm able to get that face to face with the customer and actually build that relationship with them and let them know like, hey, like my name's so and so. If you have any questions or concerns, don't be afraid to come out, yell at me if you need to, where you're like, hey, Austin, go do that.
Yeah, and
Um,
you handle that really well. You handle those kind of customers well. So do you guys use Command Center at all?
yes, we are actually full service.
Oh, okay. So that's awesome. So you weren't before though. Did you notice a difference once you did that pivot? It seemed like that's when you started using Command Center. Did that help you?
Yes, it did a lot. We were when we were not full service, we were definitely getting behind on like our automations, following up with customers about their estimates.
So you
To
probably got more jobs because there was actually people following up for you.
Yes, and then also on top of that, we were following up ourselves on
Hmm.
top of Command Center already
Awesome.
following up. So it's like they're getting a double whammy.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. And then on their side, when they haven't even gotten an estimate from somebody else, they have this company who cares and has this massive communication bombarding them in a very
Hmm.
kind way. It's pretty cool. So, what's your big picture goal for you and Tyler, or you individually?
So big picture goal for both of us is just pretty much getting our clientele a lot higher than what it is. And this year, we're more focusing on our close ratio.
Okay.
For last year, for 2022, a whole year, our close ratio was like I think 38%, and that's
Mm-hmm.
pretty terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just started this year for January, we bumped up to 40. I think it was 48 or 44%
Great.
just for
Great.
January alone.
Mm-hmm.
So just like that, that's a start. And
So
so
you're
like
going to shoot for that. And then do you have any revenue goals, or are you just going to try to get the close ratio up?
at the right now, close ratio is the focus because once the close ratio is up and high, I believe our revenue will start to show more.
For sure.
And then actually we can actually see that and be like, okay, hey, like this will be the revenue goal for next year, or like, hey, after we see the close ratio improving, okay, hey, let's see if we can make like little more than 60,000 this
Mm-hmm.
year.
That would be great. Yeah. So, how much longer does Tyler have in school?
Uh, he's a sophomore. So right
He still
now,
has a few years left.
yeah, so he still has a few years left, but this year and the next year, but we're trying to go because with his school schedule now, he's actually able to help out more to where like if we need to be out till sundown, we
Mm-hmm.
can actually do so because we're wanting to add a lot more jobs and actually more
Mm-hmm.
clientele to our list, because when we first got down here, I wasn't really full time. I
Mm-hmm.
was working some part time jobs just
Mm-hmm.
because I was like, well, we don't have the revenue coming in yet, and I still got to pay bills.
Mm-hmm.
But now I'm full time. I'm a full go. Like it's all gears going in forward.
Mm-hmm. So when you think of moving to a new CRM, which is Copilot, does that scare you a little bit?
No, knowing Mike himself as a person and how smart he is, man's a genius. Um, I he has all my full trust.
And
He,
does the fact that you have command center to answer all your questions help a little bit?
yep, and then also knowing Mike, he'll have tutorials on about how like Copilot works.
Mm-hmm.
So like if we struggle, we can go to those videos and watch them over and be like, okay, hey, this is how he does it,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure, okay, hey, we're actually following it.
So if you had to join Augusta all over again, is there anything that you would do differently as a franchise?
As a franchise,
Mhm.
um, I would say off of our first year, probably be because what we did is we didn't have our ads up full all the
Okay.
way.
Mhm.
That's one thing we would do. I would actually be full service, like with Command Center.
From the beginning.
Yep, from the beginning.
Mhm.
Third, me actually not working any side gigs, actually being full
Mm,
board where I'm okay, wake up, handing out door hangers from 9 to 8, or for example, where
yeah.
I'm just a day, okay, door hangers here, door hangers there, like trying to just get that name out there.
Mhm. You have a wife now, and
Yes, I
she
do.
was your girlfriend or fiance, or
She
you're always switching names around.
yeah, so she was the girlfriend, and then she was the fiance, now she's the wife.
I love it. I love it. So how was she in the whole idea of you becoming a franchisee?
She loved it because I've always talked to her, and she knows off me, just going off me, that like I want to be able to take care of her. I want to be
Mhm.
able to be like, hey babe, we're gonna take a week off because we're going to Hawaii just
Mhm.
because we can,
Right.
or just be like,
Exactly.
hey, like you don't need to work, but if you want to work, you can work
Mhm.
because things are gonna get taken care of.
How did you get that mentality when you didn't have a dad?
Um,
Is it because you didn't have that you
I
so
think
badly want something else?
yeah, I think it was that, or just the fact is, it's like I don't just kind of going off of that. It was like I would always watch. I think I would always get like some of this off like movies too,
Mm, mhm.
because of like I would already be watching like action packed movies, or like a movie where the scenario is where like a person like myself is always trying to take care of the family,
I see.
doing I guess you could say dangerous stuff to go get money,
Mm,
or like just figuring out ways to make sure there's food on plates and
mhm.
a roof over their head.
Oh, that's so awesome. That is really cool. That's, an angle you don't hear very often. So now with, you working all day out there,
Mm.
can you share with us audibles, podcasts, music? What do you listen to usually during the day, and what's had the most impact on you?
So lately I've just been in my music, which I'm trying to get out of. So then I can actually start getting back into more podcasts. But at the beginning, at first, the podcast I was definitely listening to was Mike's Business Bootcamp podcast,
Okay. Yep.
that he had. I just found it on Spotify, and looked him up there, and then was able to start listening to those. And then I believe some others I think mentioned from Marcus. I took a couple from him, and then I think Nick sent me a couple himself. I just couldn't remember off the top of my head.
Nice. So when you mentioned their names, they're two guys that worked at the Bellingham shop, and then they went off to own their own franchises too.
Hmm.
So you guys have stayed in contact?
Yeah, so I stay in contact with both of them. Probably Nick a little more than
Mhm.
Marcus, but I definitely will be out of the blue sometimes. I'll just be like, "Hey, Marcus, hope you're doing well. Like, just
Mhm.
checking in with you, man. Just see how you're doing. wished him a happy birthday recently when it was
Yeah.
his birthday. And so I,
That's awesome.
yeah, so but Nick for sure, because I was asking him a bunch of questions our first year, because I was like, well, you already went through this for a
Right.
year,
Mm-hmm.
and you're in your second year now, in your, I think, third year
Mm-hmm.
now. Um, but I definitely tried to pick his brain and ask him a lot of questions when I needed to.
So overall, as a person, like spiritually, physically, mentally, in your relationships, how do you think coming to Augusta from the very beginning has benefited you?
I would say great, actually. Obviously, I'll have my days where I'm like, ugh, like I'm exhausted, I'm mentally drained. Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, I just want to go in the corner and cry real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say it's definitely changed a lot. To where like, hey, like I'm thinking about going to the gym just cause,
Right.
or um, trying to be more respectful and actually listen to my wife and actually
Mm-hmm.
hear what she's saying, and it not going in one ear and out the other.
Right.
And so she's not always yelling at me.
That's
um,
wonderful.
and then just also knowing and being caring for my friends, and actually listening to them and hearing what they're trying to say, instead of being like, oh no, 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 like this is what it should be like.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, maybe your friend's trying to explain to you about something and they're trying to understand, but now you're not really understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So, what would you say to another young guy who didn't have a male figure around, who had a rough upbringing, and didn't get opportunities that a lot of other kids get to finish school, go to college, a lot of money, any of those things, and like a warm, supportive family? What would you say to them right now if they feel a lot of anxiety, they feel dumb, they feel like there's no hope? What would you say to them to try to get their footing to be able to become something that you've become?
I would say, give it a shot. Like, you never know. Like, you could just be stuck in a cycle of always being upset and not knowing what you're going to do next. Or instead, take a shot, take a jump, take a leap, and then you might find out, okay, hey, I could do this. Like, you never know what you can do without taking risk.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a big risk for myself and
Mm-hmm.
Tyler, by moving from loved ones that are miles away to a town where we don't really know as many people, other than maybe a couple people that we went to actually high school with down here.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So I would say take the risk if you're willing if you're willing to take that risk.
Mm-hmm.
And just know you do have the support of about, I think it's 100 plus, if not around 100 plus locations.
124.
Okay, yeah, I figured it was definitely over 100, but you have, of 124 people, you have the support of that group right there, which is already a
Mhm,
big family. And then Mike himself and you and Lee, like, like they have the options, they have the resources to be able to reach out if they feel
mhm.
stuck, or if they're like, hey, I need help.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, do you have any favorite quotes you want to share with us as we wrap it up?
I meant to write mine down. Um,
Why don't you read to me what is in that book? Is it that one that I wrote you a letter in?
yes.
So, maybe this is what they need to hear.
Okay, yeah, no. So I'm just gonna read pretty much what you wrote for me. So, dear Austin, there is greatness on the other side of discomfort. I believe in you and support the incredible man you are starting to be. Can't hurt me. I thought of you when I read this book. No matter what, in spite of everything, get after it, and plus achieve all you've set your mind to. Happy 22nd birthday.
Well, that gives me the chills. You've come a
Yep.
long way, man.
Yeah, no, because I believe I started. I think I was still like, I believe I was like 17, if not like 18 when I started with you guys. Like,
Yeah.
I was still a youngin. Like, I was
Yep.
pretty much like in right out of high school.
Yeah. So did you think of your quote?
I did not because I meant to write it down, but I'm just gonna go off of what you said to me because like you said, there's greatness on the other side of discomfort. So just alone right there,
Wow.
you got to be able to better yourself by being like in a discomfort situation to
Mm-hmm.
where you can figure it out and be like, okay, hey, I can do this, or hey, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
But you never know till you're in that situation.
Wow. We appreciate that. So thank you so much for your time today. I know it's a sacrifice on your weekend, but the
Of course.
value that you bring to other young men and to the industry is just wonderful. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You have a wonderful day.
Hey, you as well.
Bye-bye.
Bye.